Vicki, are you unmuted?
Yes, Mr. Virtue, I am.
Okay. Just want to check in with you. It looks like everything's working. Trying to remember how you set up public comment previously. We haven't done this in a while.
Right.
Notify members of the public that they have the right to speak. I'm trying to remember. Or do they just get in? I guess the question is, how do I know when to call on somebody? You used to run that call.
Right, yeah. And I don't know if there's going to be, as far as we know, that there's going to be a whole lot of members of the public here to speak regarding these cases. But once you finish with the applicant and you open up the public hearing, then I can unmute everybody to see if there's anyone that would like to speak. And then we'll have them get sworn in and state their name for the record. Amen.
Okay. So you'll be able to see from your perspective who's on and who wants to speak.
Right. So what I'll do is I'm gonna mute everyone so that we don't get any feedback and background noise. And then when you start the public hearing, I'll unmute everybody and they can, anyone who wants to speak can chime in.
Okay. So I'll just rely on you to keep track of that then.
Sure. Okay, it looks like we have Wordsworth gone, so they'll swear the
Right.
applicants, members of the public.
Okay. Okay, it's 3 o'clock, so we'll get started. This is the monthly meeting of the Sustainable Land Development Code Hearing Officer. My name is Richard Virtue. I'm the hearing officer. We have 3 items on the agenda today. Are there any changes to the agenda from staff?
Hearing Officer Virtue, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, so we have one old business matter. That's case number 21-5030, James Rotenberry variance. The applicant has requested that that matter be tabled. So we will table that matter to a date to be determined. And with that, we'll turn to new business. And the first case under new business is case number 20-5120 Ann Salen variance. Ann Salen applicant, Daniel Werwath, agent, requesting a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.3, building and site design, to allow a separate driveway for a proposed accessory dwelling unit, as well as a variance from Section 10.4.2.4 utilities to allow separate utilities for a proposed accessory unit. The property is zoned rural residential, is located at 11 Vestal Way within Commission District 4. And with that background, we'll turn to the staff report.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you guys hear me clearly? Thank you. The applicant is the owner of the property as evidenced by warranty deed recorded in the records of the Santa Fe County Clerk on February the 3rd, 2004 as instrument number 1312420. The applicant is requesting a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.3 to allow a separate driveway for a proposed accessory dwelling unit. In addition, the applicant requests a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.4 to allow separate utilities for the proposed accessory dwelling unit. The agent, Mr. Werwath, is a friend of the property owner who intends to purchase the property should the variance be approved. The property, 11 Vestal Way, consists of 8.32 acres. The property has an existing 793 square foot dwelling unit, which is occupied by the applicant. There are existing utilities on the lot which serve the existing dwelling unit, which consists of electrical, sewer, and a well. The existing residence is served by a small driveway located off the older portion of Vestal Way to the north. Staff have not been able to locate any permits for the residence for any additions made to the residence, but air photography shows the structure there in 1992. The applicant states in the letter of intent that the existing residence was constructed sometime in the 1930s. The property is zoned rural residential within a minimum lot size requirement of 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres. The applicant's property consists of 8.32 acres, which does not meet code requirements to subdivide the property into 2 lots or allow for a second primary residence. If the variances are approved, Mr. Werwath intends to purchase the property from the applicant and construct a new residence on the property approximately 200 plus feet south of the existing residence. Mr. Werwath's residence will be the primary residence, and the existing dwelling unit will be identified as an accessory dwelling unit, which the applicant will continue to reside in. Applicant statement. Mr. Werwath states, according to the purpose and finding of the Accessory Dwelling Unit Code, accessory dwelling units are an important means by which persons can provide separate and affordable housing for elderly, single-parent, and multi-generational family situations. The property is currently the residence of Ms. Salen, who built her modest home gradually over the last 30 years and has lived on the site since 1970s, originally in her grandfather's stone cabin. If approved, this variance would allow for a family to build a modest home and for Ms. Salen to stay in her home and age in place on her family's historical land. The reason for the variance request is that there is no buildable area in close proximity to the existing dwelling that could be served by the existing drive and utilities that isn't impacted by steep 15 to 30+% grade slopes, several deeply incised arroyos, and substantial outcroppings of bedrock. While it appears in the map that there is relatively flat area directly adjacent to the existing structure, this is in fact impacted by 38-foot access utility easement as well as significant bedrock outcrops. There are shown on the western boundary is similar impacted by an access easement as well as setback rules that do not provide enough developable area to support a house without a lot line adjustment. Vestal Way also becomes a very rough 2-track road just beyond the existing residence and has several slope issues that would likely require variances for build-out. Mr. Warwath further states the most feasible development site on the property is located approximately 200+ foot distance south from the existing structure and 450 feet plus from the pole-mounted transformer, which according to P&M makes it impossible to connect to the existing transformer and power pole because of the distance from the transformer. That distance also includes substantial rock outcroppings and bedrock ledge, an arroyo with exposed bedrock floor, and substantial trees located on slopes, where disturbance would cause significant risk of erosion and underground utility trenching is not possible. The proposed building site is adjacent to a newly constructed road and power access that was built in the last year to serve a residence that was recently constructed at One Vesta Way on the parcel immediately to the west of the subject property. The construction of this home included the creation of a county permitted 14-foot access road and subterranean P&M electrical line that crosses the entire south edge of the subject property in an easement for the benefit of the adjacent property. It would be our intent to utilize this newly constructed SLDC compliant roadway for all but the last 70 feet of access, as well as accessing electrical power from this newly created buried supply line. Staff response. Staff has conducted a site visit at 11 Vesta Way and has confirmed that there is limited buildable area that is within close proximity of the existing residence due to terrain constraints, potential access and utility easement issues, setback requirements, overhead utilities, isolated slope areas, and future location for upgraded septic system. Staff has confirmed that the portion of Vesta Way that extends past the west side of the applicant's residence is undeveloped. During staff site visit, staff did verify that there is an existing 14-foot driveway that runs along the eastern boundary of the applicant's property, which provides access to a newly constructed residence located on track 2. The neighbor's house is identified as One Vesta Way. The neighbor's driveway appears to have been constructed within the 30-foot access and utility easement illustrated in Plat Book 546, page 20. Staff, along with the applicant's agent, has determined that there is an alternative buildable location on the property that is relatively flat that would allow for a residence. The alternative building site is approximately 100 feet to the southwest of the proposed building site. If Mr. Warwath were to develop at that alternative building location, he would need to request different variances, which could include disturbance of significant trees, disturbance of rock outcroppings, and disturbance of 30% or greater slopes. Staff believes that the location proposed by Mr. Warwath in his application would be the areas that would require fewer variances. Staff determined that if the primary residence was to be constructed at the proposed location, the residence would be screened by existing mature native vegetation. The location would also be the least intrusive in protecting existing vegetation, rock outcroppings, and significant trees. Staff agrees that the sharing of a septic system and electricity is hindered significantly by the existing terrain. Mr. Warwath has stated that the only utilities that cannot be shared are the existing septic system and the existing electrical line. The applicant has addressed the variance criteria for the variance requested of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.3 to allow a separate driveway for a proposed accessory dwelling unit as follows, and staff has also provided responses. The applicant has addressed the variance criteria for variance requested of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.4 to allow separate utilities for a proposed accessory dwelling unit as follows, and staff has also provided a response. Recommendation. Staff recommends approval of a variance from the Sustainable Land Development Code, Ordinance number 2016-9 of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.3 to allow a separate driveway for a proposed accessory dwelling unit and a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.4 to allow separate utilities for a proposed accessory dwelling unit. Staff believes that due to terrain constraints, the applicant doesn't have the option to construct a residence within proximity of the proposed accessory dwelling unit, which would allow for utilization of the applicant's current driveway or utilities without disturbing 30% slopes removing significant trees and rock outcroppings. If the decision of the hearing officer is to recommend approval, staff recommends following conditions be imposed. May I enter these into the record?
You may.
Staff requests the hearing officer memorialize findings of fact and conclusion of law in a written order. The Santa Fe County Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing on this matter on June the 17th, 2021 at 4 p.m. At this time, I stand for any questions.
Okay, I have no questions at this time. I may have some later. With that, we will turn to the applicant. And I would like for the applicant and/or anyone who will be speaking on behalf of the applicant to identify themselves by name and address, and we will have you sworn in.
Both of us are here. I'm Daniel Warwath, and this is Annie Salin.
Mr. Warwath, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Salin, do you swear? Thank you.
And for the record, my
Can you
address-
provide your address, Mr. Warwath, your current address?
Yes, it's 1611 Camino Porvenir, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
And I'm 11 Vestal Way, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87505.
I'd figured that much out. Okay, we'll proceed however you would like to proceed.
And
In terms of the
just a
presentation.
short presentation. Is it possible for me to share my screen so that I can bring up a PowerPoint? Is that? I have a share button here. I believe that.
Okay.
We'll ask the host, Vicky Lucera, if that's possible.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can try. It looks like it may be doing something. So
Yeah, I think I got
yeah,
it.
there we go.
Oh,
Your
no,
screen.
that wasn't what I was trying to do though. Yeah, here. Let me get into the presentation version. So first, I want to just say thank you to everyone for allowing us to present today, and thank you, immense thank you to Santa Fe County Land Use staff who's worked with us for almost a year and a half to look at a bunch of different options and help us work through this and help us refine our approach and answer questions. I think what you see in front of you is the result of a lot of staff work that you don't see. And I just want to acknowledge that, especially John Lovato, Mike, and Vicky, who's been there along the way to help with us. So I just want to say thank you to them for their assistance up till now. And I think I want to start by just saying, we understand that variances are like an extreme remedy in the code, right? But we believe that this is the exact type of situation that a variance is meant to solve. It exists as a remedy in the code for a reason. And that's really about the uniqueness of this site, its history, its geography, the unique situation of the access that's created by the newly developed adjacent house. And that ultimately, in the end, this is the best way to uphold the intent of the Sustainable Land Development Code, which to me is the ultimate measure of success here. And with that, this is a photo of Annie's grandfather, Stanley Vestal, building the stone cabin, which is the namesake of the access from Old Santa Fe Trail, Stone Cabin Road in 1935. And I'll just turn it over to Annie for a couple seconds to talk about her history on the land. Yeah. They get you in a little window.
Oh, you
there.
get me in a little window. All right. Hi, everybody. My name's Annie Salin, and I'm the granddaughter of Stanley Vestal, who homesteaded this land in 1935. He came with my grandmother and my mother and my aunt over dirt roads from Norman, Oklahoma, where he taught at the university there. And this was, he was so pleased because it was right on the Old Santa Fe Trail, or just a stone's throw away. And he had written a book called The Old Santa Fe Trail, and this to him was just magical. And that magic sorry?
Oh, that was the baby.
Oh, that's the baby.
Yeah, there's a
There's a
2-year-old in the
baby over-
background. If you hear any weird things, I promise it's the little one.
And so that magic feeling about the land course, come down to me. I came out here in 1970, and um, it's been necessary for me to sell the land, unfortunately. But I found this wonderful couple with a little 2-year-old who are willing to let me stay in the house that I slowly built. And I just can't think of anything that has made me so happy than that. And it's been a slow process, but it's been a good one with the county because they really combed through, and we've all tried to find remedies that would have a house somewhere, but right around me there just isn't anything. I chose my site because it was 1,000 feet from the P&M pole, and that's as far as you could go to get a free one. And that's why I chose that site. And anyway, I just wanted to thank you for hearing from us. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thanks, Annie. So there's just a couple points we want to hit on, and a lot of this information is in the exhibits of the staff report, which again, I think I just want to recognize was a very excellent and thorough report. This is a picture of the subject property. You can see the mountainous terrain. This is the foot of Cerro Negro, which is a fairly prominent mountain about 1,500 feet or more above the elevation of Santa Fe. And you can see in that picture, the little sort of orangish dot is Annie's house on the hillside there. Basically, the land to the left of the house it's situated right at the property boundary. And so the land sort of to the left or south of Annie's house is primarily the subject property. Her house is built right up against the edge of the property. And the core point here is you can see that in this photograph, you can see Annie's house in the upper right-hand corner. This is an example. This is standing about 30 feet to the south of the house, and you can see the extensive rock outcrops. That's actually an arroyo course that would make it, nearly impossible to connect to the same utility system, both for gravity reasons and for just the matter that there's extensive bedrock, so you couldn't bury anything. There's also some issues with access easement and setbacks related to the fact that this property was subdivided after, this is the remaining parcel, this subject parcel is part of several parcels that once made up the larger tract of family land. And so that has situated her house at the very edge of the buildable area, or very edge of the parcel, the subject parcel. And so, yeah, the bottom line is this: there's no way to construct or even really expand the existing dwelling without disturbing slopes, rock outcroppings, loose soils, and significant trees. So that's really the driver behind that. We sort of looked at all the options up to including potentially looking at lot line adjustments. Her brother owns two adjacent parcels that are served by the rough 2-track road past Annie's house, and we looked at those options as well, and really arrived at this variance request as the lowest impact way of allowing this property to achieve the level of development that's allowed by right under the code of having a house and a guest house. This is a recent ILR, and this explains just a little bit. You can see that red line that I've added to the ILR. That just shows, that it adjacent, and particularly any flat areas immediately to the west of the existing property, and the way that access and utility easement comes in and sort of jogs diagonally to the southwest sort of bisects that, and you can see the other flat areas immediately adjacent there are impacted by existing water infrastructure and other built structures. And so the reason, that's my family. That's the proposed build site. You can see it's in a natural open clearing, although it is screened by trees. The build site itself has no slopes that no significant slopes or rock outcroppings that would be disturbed, no significant trees that would be disturbed. The access, the short section of access, and this is a site plan that was part of the submission. You can see the roadway, Vestal Way, is depicted in black here. That's all existing road that has already been created. The southern fork of Vestal Way is the newly constructed fork, which was built last year to SLDC code, permitted, and is a 14-foot, minimum 14-foot wide, adhering to SLDC slopes, turnouts, and has an aggregate top coat that, so it's a completely finished road. And the utilities are there as well, buried high voltage PNM utilities. And so what you can see in this picture is that, and this is really a concept because frankly, we can't afford to go to the level of a detailed architectural design on a conceptual or hypothetical variance. And so what we've just here done is sort of provide a general sketch of sort of the most intense version of development we would anticipate. And you can see there is about 60 or 70 feet of road that needs to be cleared. Within that, there's just a small amount of areas that may have steeper slopes well below the minimum or maximum allowed in the SLDC. And then the building site is completely flat and has no real disturbance associated with the construction of the dwelling. But you can see why this made sense in a lot of ways. If you look in the exhibits of the application, you can see there was a slopes analysis, just a rough sketch slopes analysis that John Lovato did about 1.5 years ago, where he identified this as one of only a couple possible buildable areas. The only other flat areas are either impacted by that access easement or would require vehicular access through the adjacent property owner's property if you were going to use existing roadways, and it would still need a separate access and utility variance. So that's how we landed at this site being the best way to achieve the goals that we're all seeking, and allowing Ms. Salen to achieve the same level of development that's allowed by right in every property in the county. And so just to review the three main criteria, this request is not contrary to the public interest. In fact, it's really focused on new development that has the minimal impact as possible. It is allowing existing Santa Fe residents to age in place and really develop in the most sustainable way that has the least impact on slopes, significant trees, rock outcropping, sensitive soils, all those things. And that this is really an unusual and extraordinary circumstance for several reasons. The history of the site, the unusual terrain on the site, which is very different from the vast majority of land in the county. And the unique situation that this road and utility infrastructure already exists. We would not be here asking for this variance if we had to build this road to this site. That is a really key aspect of this. And then ultimately, that this variance is in the spirit of the SLDC. When we look at section 10.4.1, this is the explicit purpose of the only stated purpose within the code for the accessory dwelling unit is to create an important means by which persons can provide separate and affordable housing for elderly, single parent, and multi-generational family situations. And that is exactly the situation we're aiming to create here. So with that, I will stand for questions, and again, appreciate everyone's time today.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Does anyone have any questions of the applicant or the applicant's representative? Okay, if not, Ms. Lucero, would you unmute folks and see if there's anyone who wishes to testify in favor of the application at this point?
Hearing Officer Virtue, I have given everybody the capability to unmute themselves. Anyone who's calling in by phone will have to hit *6 in order to unmute themselves to speak.
Okay, I'm hearing nobody. Let's ask one more time and then we'll move on if no one speaks up. Is there anyone who wishes to testify in favor of the application? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to persons wanting to testify in opposition to the application or just generally with respect to the application. Do we have anybody that wants to testify in that regard? Okay, hearing none, I'll just ask one more time. Is there anyone who wishes to testify in opposition or generally with respect to the application? Okay, hearing none, at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing on this matter, and I will prepare a written recommendation within 15 days of today. Thank you all very much.
Appreciate everybody. Thanks so much.
Okay. We'll now move on to the second item under old business on the agenda, and that is case number 215020, Manuel Roybal Rural Commercial Overlay Application. Manuel Roybal applicant, Siebert and Associates agent. Request approval to create a rural commercial overlay district on 3 parcels of land. The parcels are located at 17723 US Highway 84285 and 17725 US Highway 84285. And the third parcel is 17747 US Highway 84285. The parcel is located in Commission District, parcels, excuse me, plural, are located in Commission District 1. The current zoning on the parcels is residential community and rural fringe. There are 2 different types of zoning that apply to these parcels. So with that, we'll turn to the staff report.
Thank you, Hearing Officer Virtue. The applicant is requesting approval to create a rural commercial overlay district on 3 parcels of land in conformance with the SLDC section 8.11.2. The current zoning on the 3 parcels is a combination of residential community and rural fringe. There are adjacent tracts of land that are currently zoned as commercial general. The creation of an commercial overlay will not alter the existing zoning of residential community and rural fringe on the 3 lots. The proposed rural commercial overlay district would allow the non-residential uses identified in SLDC section 8.11.2.3 as permitted uses and section 8.11.2.4 as conditional uses. The uses permitted within the underlying zoning would also be allowed. SLDC section 8.11.2.2 identifies residential community and rural fringe as appropriate zoning to create a rural commercial overlay district. This application was reviewed for the following applicable design standards as per Chapter 7 Sustainable Design Standards of the SLDC. It was reviewed for access, fire protection, road design standards, water supply, wastewater, and water conservation, protection of historic and archaeological resources, terrain management, and flood prevention and flood control. Building Development Services staff has reviewed this project for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented support the request to create a rural commercial overlay district. The 3 parcels are either contiguous or in close proximity. The current zoning on the 3 parcels is residential community and rural fringe. There are adjacent tracts of land that are currently zoned as commercial general. The creation of a rural commercial overlay district will not alter the existing zoning of residential community and or rural fringe on the 3 lots. If the overlay zone is approved by the Board of County Commissioners, it will be included on the zoning map when that is next updated. These adjustments to the existing zoning map will reflect the 3 lots as rural commercial overlay zone with the underlying zoning as residential community and rural fringe. Staff established findings that the application to create a rural commercial overlay district within a residential community zoning is in compliance with criteria set forth in the SLDC. Staff recommends approval of the request for the creation of a rural commercial overlay district on the 3 parcels of land with the underlying zoning designated as residential community or rural fringe with the following conditions. May I enter these conditions into the record?
You may.
Thank you, Hearing Officer Virtue. This report and the exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record. Staff requests the hearing officer memorialize findings of fact and conclusions of law in a written order. The Santa Fe County Planning Commission may hold a public hearing on this matter on July 15th, 2021. Hearing Officer Virtue, I stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Larinaga. I have no questions at this time. And with that, we will turn to the applicant. I would ask that the applicant and/or anyone who wishes to testify on behalf of the applicant to please identify yourself for the record, by name and address, and we'll have you sworn in.
James W. Siebert, 915 Mercer, Santa Fe.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
I do?
And could you state your address? Oh, I guess you did.
Yeah.
Ms. Dalton, are you going to be speaking?
I do not believe so, but I can swear in just in case. I might-
Okay. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna start by bringing up a drawing just to indicate where the project is located.
Manuel Roybal is also here.
Oh, okay, Manuel, I guess, do you need to swear him in as well?
Are you speaking?
Yes, I am.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Manuel Roybal, 17721 US Highway 84/285, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87506.
Thank you very much.
We're getting there.
All right, can everyone see this map? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So this is directly across from Poake Pueblo. The interchange to the north is currently where it was the flea market. Went by the other day and the flea market seems to be gone because of COVID. That's an issue, or they're waiting to develop it as a commercial site. To the south end of the property, actually the parcel that doesn't have a hatch on it is where Manuel Roybal currently has his business, and that's zoned for commercial purposes. And at one time, this entire property had a master plan for commercial development. And actually I was the planner on that. And for whatever reason, Manuel's father didn't proceed with to go to the development plan stage, and the approval lapsed. But to the south of the office, which is the vacant parcel there, is the commercial area along the frontage road, and it extends for a considerable distance. So the deal is that this property is really caught between 2 commercial areas, one to the north that's on Pueblo, and one to the south that's an existing commercial area. And then we'll show you another description of the zoning in the area. So, the red down here is where the office is commercial, as we said, it's on commercial. To the south, it's, as you can see, the zoning, commercial zoning is extending to the south quite a distance. And then on the north side is the Pueblo, which doesn't have, zoning designation. The actual use, at least as of a few weeks or months ago, was for the flea market there. So, let me go to the next slide. And this is, if you can zoom out a little bit. Cool. So this is kind of an opposite of properties that are owned. There are some properties within the Roybal ownership that are not being zoned for commercial purposes. Down to the very south is where they have their office. It's already zoned commercial. And there's two other parcels that actually are part of the Roybal family. They do not want to have an overlay because they're concerned that with the application and the overlay, the taxes will go up and didn't want to be subject to a higher tax. So they have been left out of this particular overlay request. A lot of the property as well is within the floodplain of the drainage, which is fairly extensive over here, and that would be actually when the property develops, the individual parcels develop, that particular area would be reserved as open space. There is a well on the current property where the current zoning is that can serve for commercial uses based on conversations that we've had with the state engineer's office. Also, there's water rights that are existing on the property. Those are currently being transferred to the well and allocated for commercial use. The anticipation based on the attorney that's handling the water rights is that there'll be a little over 6 acre feet that will be available for developing this property. As commercial uses, they typically don't have any kind of a demand, and certainly in that range. This is kind of the extent of what we have. We think we've complied with all the requirements of the county code. There's really 3 different driveways that were, when they built the frontage road, they also the highway department installed the driveways basically to each of these parcels. Now, what will happen as each development comes in on any of these properties, they will have to submit for a site development plan, and the site development plan will have to comply with the SLDC. So, they may have to do a traffic study, and they will have to do all the standard elements of a site development plan, wastewater, the water, rain management, the whole series of standards that are relative to the SLDC. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Mr. Siebert, I, as the hearing examiner, I have a question about sewer. Is there any kind of a community sewer system in that area, or is it all still on septic tanks? I know there's some significant commercial development nearby. I'm just wondering what the situation is with respect to sewer.
There is no, the county doesn't have any sewer in that area, and nor does the Pueblo have any sewer in that area. And it's my understanding that that it's not planned for the future. The county is not planning for it in the future. It is part of a MOT. And at some point in time, a regional water system will be available to the area. One of the conditions, I forgot to mention, we agree to the conditions. One of the conditions is that when the regional water is available, that they would be required to connect the regional.
Okay, yeah, I saw the water, the condition related to water. But I didn't get any additional information. Didn't see any additional information about what the future, what the future for sewer is in that area. Does anyone else have any questions of the applicant? Or the applicant's representatives? Would Mr. Roybal like to speak?
Yeah, I would. Okay, Manuel Roybal. My father bought this property, I'd say probably in the 60s. We went in 1999, we had Mr. Siebert go in. We had the property zoned as commercial to the county commissioners. At that point, the only regulation or stipulation that they put in that we could not develop the property until the county, not the county, the state highway developed the frontage road before we could do any commercial development. But I did get approval for development by the county. Okay, since then we waited and they finally put the frontage road in and the overpasses. At that time, we didn't have the money for development. So we've been waiting now, a few years down the line, we're ready to develop it or get started on the development. The state highway has put the frontage roads in. We do lay in a commercial zone. Pojoaque Pueblo surrounds us and Nambe Pueblo to the side, and they are developing all this area between the two overpasses as commercial. As it sits right now, I still pay the county for commercial property on my taxes, vacant commercial. To this day, the county and one department still recognizes me as commercial property. Our intent was to develop it commercially, and we have been using. The reason we went to the county back in '99 is we needed to use a pipe yard to store our pipe, which we're using right now as part of our business. We're a construction company. Right now, the only thing we have, because of the zoning change, is the office area now, but all the properties you're looking at in question have been used as commercial property ever since we got development, but we're only using the entrance that is zoned as commercial at the moment and storing and selling pipe and material out of the lots that we have there. It is commercial or being used as commercial as it is, but when they did the new zoning change, unfortunately, I was on the board of planning and zoning. I retired when the new process was coming in. I didn't realize, perhaps I would have contested at that time, that it got changed to residential. But we did go through the whole process once already. This is my second time doing as such. We shouldn't have to be going through a second approval. We had it approved. There were stipulations put in, and I agreed with them. And even now, if I get commercial approval, I will have to go back to the county and have each individual development overlooked and get approval for you as we develop. The only thing I'm asking for is to get it rezoned to commercial, which we thought we were, and keep it there and go through approval through development later on as we bring in development.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roybal. Are there any questions of Mr. Roybal at this time? Any more questions for the applicant and his representatives at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll have Ms. Lucero unmute the rest of the participants. And I will ask if there is anyone who wishes to testify in support of the application. Okay, again, is there anyone who wishes to testify in support of the application?
Hearing Officer Virtue, I have given everybody the ability to unmute themselves, but they will have to actually go in and click the unmute button if they wish to
Okay,
speak.
thanks for that clarification. Okay. So I'll ask again if anybody wishes to testify in support of the application. Okay, hearing none, I will ask if there is anyone present who would like to testify either in opposition to the application or just generally with respect to the application. Okay, again, is there anyone who wishes to testify in opposition or generally with respect to the application? Okay, hearing none, I will at this point close the public hearing on this matter, and I will prepare a written recommendation within 15 working days of today. Thank you all very much for attending. And with that, I will close today's meeting. Thank you very much.